Running through a valley full of mist as the sun rises over a hill is the best way to start a day, and absolutely the best way to stop yourself from being too serious on yourself and to worry about too many things. I find that all of that just washes away. Murakami wrote that if you can run and think of nothing, then you've achieved the purpose of running. And I truly believe that. I don't want anything in my mind when I'm running. I just want to focus on the sound of me running, whether it's my breath, my heart, or my feet on the ground beneath me. Hi, my name's Matt. I'm an illustrator based in Dorset with Handsome Frank. I create illustrations that I want them to be thought-provoking, to make people think about what's going on in the illustration, to kind of dive deeper into it so that they can actually see what it's all about, but also put their own imagination into it so that they might drag something new out of it that I hadn't even thought out when I did it. I try to create space within my illustrations, whether or not it's space up in the sky or space that's around us, to try and give them a more dynamic feel within the imagery. Pictures like the swimming illustration, I want people to imagine themselves in the water so that they're actually taking over the illustration. They should make people think, and they should make people imagine what could be happening within the scene. My typical day starts with a pretty horrendous commute. It's about 3 meters to my studio from my house, which is a great way to get to work. It's also a great way to live, because although I'm in the studio, I'm also still connected to my family and my house. I start the work in my studio, I try and get all of my admin done, and then I'll take myself off into town, normally with a sketchbook. If I've got a brief to read, then I will, and I'll go and find a nice spot in my favourite coffee shop and sit down and go through the brief, do some sketching, and then head on back to the studio, and it's all about the creativity then, and I can just focus on the drawing. So sometimes I get briefs in from people like New Scientist, which are heavy briefs to try and dissect and trying to pull out a way to simplify it. I really enjoy them. So they're my favourite briefs to do, because you get to dive really deep into them. And the challenge is whether or not you can simplify it enough that someone can see it. And then if you can complete that challenge, and then you create something simple and beautiful, that telling a complicated story, then that's the best feeling in the world. So once I've chosen the music that really relates to the brief that I'm reading, I play it in the studio, so it completely informs the illustration that I'm working on. And then I use it throughout to help me create the mood and the colouring and the feeling of the illustration. For me, the music is almost as important as every other element of the illustration. I kind of see in music, if that makes sense. So moving forward, the more I do work that's inspired by things I love, the more I want to do work that's inspired by things I love. So I'd love to be working for more parts of the industry that I actually enjoy doing in my free time as well. The piece that I'm working on at the moment is very much connected to my love of running. It's a scene from one of the most iconic areas of the Dorset coastline, which shows Durdle Door. It's a wonderful place to go running, and it's part of the Jurassic coastline. And you can just run for miles and miles and miles. I wanted to get the angle of it and to still show Durdle Door in all of its glory and make it interesting and get the real physical effect of running shown within the illustration. So we moved to Dorset in 2006, and it took me a long time to get used to the much slower life down here than we had in London. Gradually, I've gotten used to the fact that you don't have to rush around everywhere. You can take your time. One of the best things I find about living in Dorset is the fact that you have the countryside all around you, and that in itself is almost like therapy. If you're having a stressful time on a job, or just a stressful day in general, you can just take yourselves out into the woods and surround yourself by nature, and it just immediately relaxes you. And I always solve illustration problems on runs or in walks or by swimming in the sea.